Hey, everybody. We are going to talk about some of the most delicious stocks in the market. We're going to talk about Starbucks. We're going to talk about Chipotle. Before we do, please take a minute and check out the link you see on your screen, fool.com/Frankel. Get the top 10 stocks to buy right now from our sponsor, The Motley Fool. It's the best way to support this work we're doing on YouTube. Again, fool.com/Frankel. So we're going to talk about Chipotle because something really interesting happened, and it's really not unusual to see a CEO shakeup, right? CEOs leave from time to time. Companies steal CEOs from others when they think they can turn around their business. We just saw that with Starbucks and Chipotle. Starbucks took Chipotle CEO Brian Niccol away, who has been just kind of the driving force of that company's growth story. Is really the best way to say it. Over the past 5 full years under his leadership, Chipotle's revenue's grown by an annualized 15% rate. Earnings have grown by an annualized 47% rate. And Starbucks has problems. Starbucks has not grown by a 15% rate over the past 5 years. The things that Chipotle does really well, which we'll get into in a little bit, Starbucks doesn't. So I love the hire. And as a Starbucks shareholder, I love what it did for the stock. But I want to look at it from the Chipotle point of view because I know Rick Munares is joining me. He is a longtime Motley Fool contributor, much before my time. I've learned so much about investing from Rick. And I know he was a Chipotle fan before most people knew what Chipotle was. So, Rick, what is your take? What did you think of the outgoing CEO, first of all, and what do you think going forward? Are you worried about it, or do you think it's a bargain right now?
Yeah. So as far as Brian Niccol leaving, and again, this is the kind of thing when it was basically so on February 13th, 2018 was when Chipotle said, "Hey, we're bringing in this Taco Bell guy," and the stock went up, and like initially I was thinking, Taco Bell. Chipotle, it's almost like, like a Waffle House manager being named, the manager of like some, Fifi French bistro, in town. So it felt odd, but it made sense on so many levels just because what Chipotle lacked at the time, Chipotle was a mess in 2018. And I know you think Chipotle, how can, Steve Ells, the co-founder CEO, he's so beloved and everything, but this is a company, and it wasn't just the 2015, the norovirus outbreak, and then a lot of food illnesses. They also had a lot of misfires operationally. This was a company that they introduced chorizo, and it was like a big ballyhoo. Oh, hey, they brought in chorizo. It's a new protein. Within a year, it was gone. They introduced queso, and again, I know I wasn't the only one that when I first tried the Chipotle queso, I go, no, this isn't like the Moe's or like the traditional quesos I get that I normally like. They reformulated it. It's a little more palatable, going within their own, natural ingredients aspect of what they wanted the queso to be. But they did have a lot of misfires. They promised a dessert. They promised that they were going to have buñuelos on the. They didn't say buñuelos, but they had a test kitchen in New York that was testing buñuelos. They said, we have a dessert in the works. It was easy to connect the dots. We never saw it. So they had a lot of problems there in executing. And here came in Brian Niccol, and as you mentioned, all the growth. The most important thing for investors, since it was announced on February 13, 2018, till now, the stock is a 10-bagger. And this is a very large company. To be a 10-bagger in 6.5 years is phenomenal. So he was great for Chipotle. Everything seemed to be going well for them, even past the pandemic. He managed to get them into Chipotle lanes, which is drive-through, digital sales. All these things were basically increased revenue. Create a second take line. So if you go to Chipotle, the assembly line, they created a second take line so that for takeout orders and mobile orders, so you weren't being held up by someone's order. They did a lot of cool things under Niccol. And yeah, I think he will be missed but I don't think the problem is Chipotle isn't in the same state right now that it was 6.5 years ago. They're in a much better place, which is why I think that, it's not a ship that needs to be righted. And I don't mean that because Scott Boatwright is the name of the new CEO who is a CEO. He's the interim CEO. They may come up with a new one, but I do think that this is a company that wasn't broken. And is Chipotle a buy right now? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, not like a screaming buy right now, because it is very richly valued. And even though the stock did take a hit, and rightfully so, when Niccol announced, it was a bigger gain for Starbucks than it was a loss for Chipotle. And after the initial hit, Chipotle stock has sort of clawed its way back. So Chipotle stock is still doing well, just slightly below where it was as when we're recording this than it was after the announcement that he would be leaving earlier this month. So I do think that the stock, Chipotle isn't necessarily cheap because he's gone, but it does raise more questions now, but not as questionable as it was when he came in 2018. And Chipotle was really broken and in need. Earnings was basically from 2015 to 2017, earnings was basically cut by almost 2/3. Revenue was flat. And by saying flat, that means that comps are down because it's always expanding with new store openings. So I do think Chipotle is in a much better place right now, largely because of Niccol. But I do think that when they do get to whether Boatwright becomes the permanent CEO or whoever becomes the next CEO is going to have a much easier job. But I think the more exciting opportunity now may be for Starbucks, because it's the same reason we saw what happened with Chipotle. Is Starbucks the next Chipotle in this case?
Yeah, you make some really good points there. That Niccol, he's not leaving something that needs to be fixed. He's leaving a very well-oiled machine for whoever his successor is. And you mentioned Scott Boatwright. Not only is he not new to the business, but he was a big part of the turnaround effort. Yeah. He wasn't just kind of sitting there taking orders. Like, he was, a big part of what happened too. It wasn't just a one-man show. I mean, the CEO at the end of the day always gets the credit. It's like the president of the United States gets all the credit or blame, even though there's 500 people who are involved in every decision. Yeah. But looking forward, like, in my mind, the biggest thing he got right was mobile ordering, but not even close. If you had asked me 5 years ago what company was doing the best job of mobile ordering, I would have said Starbucks, hands down. They were early to the game when it came to mobile ordering. In 2019, going into the pandemic, they were the best positioned to handle, a contactless ordering system, just because the Starbucks rewards program, which had already been in place for a decade or more, had evolved into this kind of quick mobile ordering system. They built that out quicker than anyone else. But then it just kind of plateaued after like 2019. Their mobile ordering, then once it caught on during the pandemic, the mobile order volume exploded. Now you get these big wait times in the store. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of mobile ordering. There was one instance when I went to my local Starbucks and the mobile order wait time was listed as 35 minutes. But meanwhile, I walked up and ordered one from the counter and it took 5 minutes. That's a broken system. And it's during these peak times in the morning. And when I walk into Chipotle, all the mobile orders are being made in a separate assembly line in the back of the store. They're not they're not sharing the same espresso machine like Starbucks does. There's a lot of logistical issues with Starbucks mobile ordering system. The app's fantastic in and of itself, but just the kind of the order execution, and that's where Niccol really shines, and that's why I think he's worth every penny they're paying him, which is a lot, by the way. And I just saw today they're letting him commute, I think, where is it, from California, every day. So they're giving him a very great deal. But as far as maybe other than hiring like Warren Buffett himself, I don't really know how you could have made a better hire in this case. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's like why? How does a team lose its star player and another obviously big team takes over? But I think it's the appeal. Niccol loves the turnaround story, which is probably what attracted him to Taco Bell in the first place, to Chipotle, and now Starbucks. Where he's got it made in Chipotle, but here in Starbucks, he can. Again, this is going to be on the Mount Rushmore of restaurant chain turnarounds if he can turn around Taco Bell, Chipotle, and Starbucks. It's definitely, it was the right call for him. I get it. It hurts me as a Chipotle fan more than a Starbucks fan, but I don't think it's going to be as easy because, again, the speed that you get at a Chipotle, it's really complicated with Starbucks with all these little syrups and fruits and mixers and all these little different types of milks. It's not the same, and I hope he doesn't streamline it and make it less of an experience to make it more efficient. But you can be spending a long time at the Starbucks counter, whereas that never happens at Chipotle because you're just coasting down the line.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investment, so I'm proud to partner with The Motley Fool to bring you 10 stock picks from their popular product, Stock Advisor. Stock Advisor has beaten the market by more than 4 times, So go to fool.com/Frankel to get your 10 stock picks now. The Motley Fool Stock Advisor returns are 650% as of April 16th, 2024, and are measured against the S&P 500 returns of 148% as of April 16th, 2024.